Have you ever felt like you're working harder than everyone else, yet somehow you're still falling behind? You arrive before anyone else. You leave after everyone else. You give your time, your energy, your sleep. And still, someone working half your hours gets promoted. Someone else succeeds with what looks like half your struggle. You're exhausted, burnt out, running on empty. And deep inside, one painful question keeps repeating. Why isn't hard work enough? If that question has ever crossed your mind, this story will change how you work forever. Because once, there was a farmer who almost destroyed his life by working too hard, until one lesson taught him the difference between effort and strategy. Stay with me until the end. In a quiet farming valley where families had worked the land for generations, lived a 32-year-old farmer named Thomas. Thomas owned a modest 10-acre farm inherited from his father, and Thomas believed in one thing above all else: hard work. Every morning he woke up at 4 a.m., long before sunrise. He refused to buy modern tools. "My grandfather did it this way," he would say. "Hard work is the only honest path." He planted every seed by hand, watered every row with buckets, pulled every weed himself. From sunrise to sunset, Thomas worked. His hands were cracked and bleeding, his back ached constantly, but he wore his exhaustion like a badge of honor. At night, he collapsed into bed, too tired to eat properly, too tired to talk, too tired to live. His wife, Sarah, would look at him with worried eyes. "Thomas, you're killing yourself. There has to be a better way." But Thomas would shake his head. "Success requires sacrifice. Hard work never fails. I just need to work harder." Other farmers admired him. "That man works like 3 men," they said. But the truth was cruel. Despite working twice as many hours, Thomas's farm barely survived. Every harvest was a struggle. Every season pushed him closer to debt. And worst of all, he had no life outside of work. Next to Thomas's farm lived another farmer named Richard. Same age, same land size, started with less money. But Richard worked 6 hours a day. He used modern irrigation, focused on fewer crops, rested, read, spent time with family. And somehow his farm produced double the results. That fact haunted Thomas every night. The drought that broke him. One brutal summer, a drought hit the valley. Water became scarce. Thomas responded the only way he knew, by working even harder. He woke up at 3 a.m., carried water buckets from a distant well, 50 trips a day. His body screamed, but he pushed through. "Hard work never fails," he repeated like a prayer. Richard, meanwhile, adjusted his irrigation system to deliver water efficiently during cooler hours. Minimal effort, minimal waste. On the 15th day, Thomas collapsed. His vision blurred, his legs gave out, the bucket slipped from his hands. Sarah found him on his knees, gasping for air. The doctor's words were blunt. "Your body is shutting down. If you continue like this, you won't see the next harvest, not because of drought, but because you'll be dead." That night, Thomas felt something unfamiliar: defeat. "I did everything right," he whispered to Sarah. "I worked harder than anyone. Why am I failing?" Sarah squeezed his hand. "Maybe hard work isn't the answer. Maybe there's something you haven't learned yet." 3 days later, Thomas did something his pride had avoided for years. He knocked on Richard's door. Richard listened quietly, then took Thomas to his shed. He picked up 2 axes, one old and dull, one sharp and gleaming. "Imagine 2 woodcutters," Richard said. "The first swings for 12 hours straight, never resting. The second sharpens his axe every hour." Richard handed Thomas the dull axe. Thomas swung. Again, again. barely a dent. Richard picked up the sharp axe. 3 swings. The logs split cleanly. "You've been swinging a dull axe for years," Richard said. "Hard work without strategy is just suffering." Systems over effort. Buckets versus irrigation. One works while you sleep. Focus over hustle. 2 crops mastered beats 5 done poorly. Rest is part of the strategy. A tired mind makes expensive mistakes. You're not failing because you don't work hard. You're failing because that's the only way you know how to work. Thomas went home with hope. He worked fewer hours but planned more. Within weeks, installed drip irrigation, reduced crops from 5 to 2, hired help during peak season. 6 months later, he worked 7 hours a day instead of 15 and produced 40% more than ever before. He had dinner with Sarah, laughed, lived. Richard smiled. "You're not just a hard worker anymore. You're a smart one." Hard work is necessary, but it is not sufficient. Stop swinging the dull axe. Build systems, focus deeply, rest intentionally. Because your best work happens when your mind is sharp, not when your body is broken. Strategy beats exhaustion every single time.